In the thunder of ocean storms and the silent calculus of naval strategy, imagine a single silhouette on the horizon that can change the balance of power at sea in a heartbeat. Welcome to Global Defense Zone. Smash that like button, subscribe, and share this video now. Because what you are about to hear is the full story of Russia's ultimate surface warship, the nuclear-powered Kirov-class Battlecruiser Pyotr Velikiy. A floating fortress built for deterrence, command, and annihilation, and in this one uninterrupted deep dive you will learn its history, design philosophy, propulsion and endurance, sensors and electronics, every major weapon system down to tactical doctrine, operational history, modernization programs, strategic impact, vulnerabilities, and the future role such a Titan could play in 21st century naval warfare. So stay with me and please like, subscribe, and share Global Defense Zone for more exhaustive military breakdowns. Conceived in the Cold War era to offset American carrier dominance, the Kirov-class emerged from Soviet naval thinking that prioritized massively armed surface combatants capable of independent operations against carrier strike groups, and while the United States focused resources on carrier air power and escort networks, Soviet designers envisioned a ship that combined the sheer punching power of battleships with guided missile technology, resulting in a vessel that dwarfed contemporary cruisers and destroyers in size, armament, and presence. Pyotr Velikiy, laid down in the 1980s and commissioned in 1998 after the tumultuous years surrounding Soviet collapse, is the last active Kirov-class and the symbolic flagship of the Northern Fleet, measuring approximately 252 meters in length, with a beam of roughly 28.5 meters and a full load displacement approaching 28,000 to 28,500 tons, a size that places it in the category of supercruisers and makes it one of the largest non-carrier surface combatants ever constructed. Its towering superstructure and radar masts create an unmistakable profile that projects psychological as well as kinetic power. At the heart of its endurance and ability to remain on station for extended periods are its nuclear propulsion plants, typically two pressurized water reactors coupled to steam turbines which provide near unlimited range and autonomy compared with conventionally fueled surface combatants, enabling Pyotr Velikiy to patrol oceans for months, operate in the Arctic under extreme conditions, and support long-distance deployments without port calls for refueling, a strategic advantage that allows Russia to maintain presence across multiple theaters and complicate adversary planning. The ship sensors and combat systems form a multi-layered detection and engagement architecture designed to find targets at distance, manage complex engagements, and coordinate strike packages. Air search radars with long-range surveillance capability are complemented by fire control radars, target designation suites, sonar arrays for anti-submarine warfare, and robust electronic warfare and countermeasure systems that can detect, jam, and spoof enemy sensors. And over the decades, Pyotr Velikiy has received upgrades to its electronic architecture, allowing improved data fusion and better integration with fleet command networks, thus transforming a Cold War platform into a modern command and control node capable of orchestrating multi-domain naval operations. However, what truly defines the ship is its armament, a staggering combination of long-range anti-ship missiles, long- and medium-range air defense systems, close-in protection, anti-submarine weapons, naval guns, and the capability to act as a flagship with extensive communications and command facilities. Offensively, Pyotr Velikiy was originally fitted with up to 20 P-700 Granite, NATO, SSN-19 shipwreck supersonic cruise missiles, each a massive weapon weighing several tons, capable of speeds well over Mach 2, with ranges often cited around 500 to 625 kilometers depending on flight profile and launch parameters, and designed with sophisticated seekers and mid-course communication so that salvos could coordinate and overwhelm complex ship defense arrays by designating target assignments in flight, a concept that turns each missile salvo into a system of systems rather than a set of independent weapons and that, historically, created profound concerns among NATO planners about carrier survivability when faced with a Kirov-class attack. Layered into that long-range strike capability is formidable area air defense centered on the S-300F Fort system, navalized S-300, capable of engaging aircraft and anti-ship missiles at ranges up to roughly 90 kilometers in ideal conditions, backed by medium-range OSAM-A, SA-N4 Gecko systems for intermediate engagements, and further protected by the Kashtan, CADS, N1, close-in weapon system combining rapid-fire 30 mm Gatling cannons with short-range surface-to-air missiles. To create last-ditch interception envelopes against missile saturations and close aerial threats, this dense air defense suite gives Pyotr Velikiy the ability to defend itself and nearby task group units against layered air threats. Anti-submarine warfare, ASW, is integrated as well, with hull-mounted and towed sonar arrays for detection, rocket-propelled anti-submarine mortars and torpedo tubes for prosecution, and helicopters embarked when required to expand ASW reach and provide airborne sensors and weapons. Thus, Pyotr Velikiy can hunt beneath the waves as effectively as it hunts on the surface, making it a true multi-domain combatant capable of denying adversaries freedom of maneuver across air, surface, and subsurface domains. Beyond the original systems, modernization efforts have aimed to keep the ship relevant. Upgrades to radar suites, combat management systems, satellite communications, and the potential integration of modern missiles. In recent years, Russian defense sources and analysts have discussed plans to install hypersonic capabilities such as the 3M-22 Zircon missile on existing platforms, and theoretical integration of such a Mach 5 to 8 class weapon would dramatically compress engagement timelines and increase the ship's punch by enabling extremely high-speed strikes that current missile defenses would struggle to defeat. Pyotr Velikiy's operational history underscores both its symbolic value and practical utility. It has periodically deployed to the Mediterranean, visited foreign ports, participated in major exercises, and served as a visible instrument of Russian foreign and naval policy, often conducting patrols that test NATO responses and demonstrate Russia's ability to operate in distant theaters, and during crises the ship's very movement forces attention. NATO and U.S. vessels routinely shadowed or tracked Kirov-class sorties, allocating resources to monitor and deter actions, showing that the cost of countering such a vessel is not only physical but strategic and fiscal for adversaries. Yet even Titans have vulnerabilities and limitations that are important to understand. The Kirov-class's very size and concentrated capability make it a high-value target. The ship's large radar cross-section, long masts, and predictable strategic value attract significant attention from intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance systems, and while layered air defenses are powerful, they are finite, and modern anti-ship capabilities, including long-range precision strike, submarine-launched weapons, standoff missiles, and swarm tactics, present complex threat environments that a single ship cannot negate alone. Logistics and maintenance are also substantial concerns. Nuclear reactors require specialized support, and complex missile systems and electronics demand ongoing modernization budgets to remain effective. During the 1990s and early 2000s, Russia's budgetary constraints limited the operational tempo and upgrade pace of large capital ships, leaving some sister ships in reserve or decommissioned, a reality that highlights how sustaining such a platform is as much about economics and industrial capacity as it is about naval doctrine. Tactically, Pyotr Velikiy's best use is as the center of a task force where its strengths, long-range strike, area air defense, and command and control, can be multiplied by escorts and supporting assets. In coordinated operations, the battlecruiser can act as a missile bastion, a defensive umbrella, and a command node, not merely trading blows with enemy ships but shaping the battlefield through denial, area control, and the ability to force adversaries into reactive postures. Psychologically, the ship's presence influences political calculations. Port visits, Arctic patrols, and Mediterranean exercises broadcast Russian intent and capability, buying diplomatic leverage and reinforcing alliances with states that observe shows of force as signs of reliability or deterrence. Technologically, the Kirov-class represents an intersection of Cold War design and modern adaptation, a hull and platform engineered for massive missile salvos now retrofitted with digital combat networks, improved electronic warfare, and possibilities for new payloads. thereby exemplifying how legacy platforms can remain relevant when paired with targeted upgrades. In terms of survivability, Pyotr Velikiy benefits from both redundancy and active defenses. Multiple missile layers, robust damage control systems, armored sections in critical areas, and a trained crew capable of sustained operations and damage mitigation, and importantly, the nuclear plant allows high sustained speed and operational reach, enabling the ship to reposition, withdraw, or re-engage in a manner conventional hulls might not. Strategic critics often argue that the age of the aircraft carrier and integrated battle group has rendered massive surface combatants obsolete, pointing to cost-effectiveness. Anti-access/area denial, A2/AD, proliferation, and asymmetric threats, but Pyotr Velikiy rebuts that thesis by being precisely the kind of a 2/AD platform which, by virtue of its firepower and defenses, forces carrier-centric navies to take extra precautions, disperse assets, and invest in layered fleet defenses, thereby imposing opportunity costs that ripple through strategic planning. When assessing the ship's geopolitical implications, consider not just its salvo capacity but the signaling value. A well-publicized deployment to the Mediterranean during heightened tensions communicates to allies and adversaries alike that Russia has blue water reach, the will to operate far from home, and the capacity to threaten high-value assets, which in turn affects diplomatic bargaining, coalition calculations, and regional deterrence dynamics. Modernization and future-proofing remain central to Pyotr Velikiy's continued relevance, integrating advanced sensors, including over-the-horizon radar, improved passive detection suites, and enhanced satellite data links, will increase situational awareness and resilience against electronic attack. Adding new missile families, including supersonic or hypersonic weapons and networked anti-ship missiles with cooperative targeting, will preserve the ship's offensive shock value, upgrading point defense systems, improving decoys, and enhancing cyber and electronic defenses will reduce vulnerability to modern attribution and neutralization. Methods, training, and doctrine adjustments that emphasize distributed lethality, using the battlecruiser as a node in a resilient fight rather than a single decisive instrument, will maximize survivability and strategic effect. Historically, the Kirov-class concept reflected Soviet willingness to trade fewer but more massively armed platforms for larger numbers of smaller ships, and Pyotr Velikiy's continued operation underscores a persistent Russian naval philosophy that mixes high-end platforms with asymmetric tools, including submarines, land-based anti-ship missiles, and integrated air defenses, to create overlapping threat layers. Notable deployments and exercises have demonstrated both capability and message. Arctic patrols project presence in contested northern routes as ice retreats, Mediterranean deployments allow power projection near NATO's southern flank, and high-visibility sea sorties signal readiness to defend Russian interests and allies, each movement testing sensors, logistics, and command processes while sending a clear strategic message. Comparing Pyotr Velikiy to contemporary surface combatants clarifies its uniqueness. While modern destroyers and cruisers emphasize stealth, modularity, and networked sensors, Pyotr Velikiy prioritizes concentrated firepower and endurability, a different but complementary approach that confronts opposing naval architectures with dilemmas, whether to invest in specialized counter-capabilities or accept persistent ambiguity and risk in contested waters. From the perspective of deterrence theory, the battlecruiser is effective because it changes adversary cost calculations. The credible possibility of rapid, devastating strikes against carrier strike groups or critical naval hubs raises the price of naval intervention and complicates crisis escalation ladders, while the psychological weight of a floating fortress serves as an instrument of coercive diplomacy without firing a shot. Operationally, coordination with submarines, maritime patrol aircraft, satellites, and shore-based sensors would enhance the ship's lethality by feeding targeting data and extending engagement ranges, and in combined arms scenarios Pyotr Velikiy's missiles could be cued by external sensors to achieve higher strike accuracy and survivability against countermeasures. Nonetheless, the platform cannot fight in isolation. Modern naval combat favors networked forces with redundancy, and so the ideal employment of Pyotr Velikiy is within a balanced task force that includes ASW assets, air defense escorts, and logistic support to protect against the diverse threats of the modern battle space. Economically and politically, decisions to maintain, upgrade, or expand such platforms involve industrial capacity, budget prioritization, and strategic intent. Sustaining a vessel of Pyotr Velikiy's size requires yard access, skilled technicians, ordnance manufacturing, and long-term funding commitments, which in turn reflect national priorities about naval posture and the value placed on blue water projection. Looking forward, if Russia successfully integrates hypersonic strike capabilities, advanced passive detection, and resilient communications, the ship could become even more disruptive, compressing decision times for adversaries and making preemptive kill chains more difficult to establish. But adversaries are also investing in countermeasures: layered fleet defenses, long-range surveillance, cooperative engagement, architectures, and offensive submarines designed to neutralize capital ships, so the future will be a contest of adaptation, counter-adaptation, and cost imposition strategies. In closing, Pyotr Velikiy stands as a singular testament to a certain kind of naval thinking, one that prizes overwhelming firepower, strategic signaling, and endurance. And while debates about the utility of such large surface combatants will continue, nothing diminishes the raw fact that when this battlecruiser sails, it alters the strategic picture, forces adversaries to respond, and reminds the world that naval power is as much about perception as it is about ordnance. And if you found this exhaustive look at Russia's most powerful surface warship valuable, please like, subscribe, and share Global Defense Zone so we can keep bringing you the deep, factual, and unvarnished stories behind the world's greatest military machines. Because Pyotr Velikiy is not merely steel and missiles, it is a doctrine embodied, a signal sent across oceans, and a continuing chapter in the story of naval power.